Blood River. Chapter 3. The Restricted Archives. For the next 2 weeks, Elias became obsessed. Every free moment was spent researching. He scoured the internet for information about Scottish settlements in America during the late 1700s. He learned about the Highland clearances that drove thousands of Scots across the Atlantic, seeking new lives in a new world. But nowhere could he find mention of Millbrook or Bluid River, or any frontier conflict in this specific valley. It was as if his town had been deliberately omitted from history. His grades began to slip. His mother noticed the dark circles under his eyes. His father asked, twice, if everything was okay at school. Elias lied and said he was fine. But he wasn't fine. He was consumed by the mystery, and by the growing certainty that the town itself was conspiring to keep the truth buried. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Elias returned to the library. This time, he didn't head to the public stacks. Instead, he approached Mrs. Carmichael's desk directly. "You said I wouldn't find what I was looking for in the public section," he said quietly. "Where should I be looking?" Mrs. Carmichael studied him over her reading glasses. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stood, pulled a ring of old brass keys from her desk drawer, and gestured for him to follow. "What you're seeking is dangerous, young man," she said, as they climbed a narrow staircase he'd never noticed before. "Your grandmother sought it too. It cost her everything." Elias's breath caught. "You knew my grandmother?" "Everyone knew Margaret Stewart," Mrs. Carmichael replied. "Before she vanished." The 4th floor of the library wasn't on any map or directory. It was a single room, windowless and cramped, filled with filing cabinets, old trunks, and shelves of crumbling documents sealed in plastic. "The Restricted Archives," Mrs. Carmichael announced. "Records deemed too problematic for public consumption. The town council wanted them destroyed in 1952, but I convinced them that history, even ugly history, deserves to be preserved." She unlocked a filing cabinet marked 1790 to 1810 and withdrew a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age. "This belonged to Duncan MacLeod, leader of the Scottish settlement that founded Millbrook. He kept meticulous records, too meticulous for the town's liking." She placed the journal in Elias's hands. "Read it quickly, and tell no one you were here." The Journal of Duncan MacLeod. Elias opened the journal with trembling fingers. The handwriting was cramped and faded, but legible. 15th August, 1792. "We have arrived at the river the natives call Weparkanit, place of white waters. They warn us not to settle here. They say the river is sacred, cursed, that others have come seeking its power, and all have fallen to violence. But we have nowhere else to go. Scotland has cast us out. This land is our last hope." Elias flipped forward several pages. 22nd September, 1792. "The Northmen arrived today, Vikings, though they claim no allegiance to the old kingdoms. They say they've been drawn here by dreams, visions of power beneath the river. They demand we leave. We refuse. The natives watch from the forest. They do not interfere. Perhaps they know what is coming." 10th October, 1792. "The first battle. The river ran red with blood, ours, theirs, and the native warriors who finally joined the fight to drive us all away. But none of us will leave. We cannot. The river calls to us. It whispers promises of power, of survival. I fear we are all damned." Elias read entry after entry, his hands growing cold. The war had lasted 3 years. 3 bloody years of Scots, Vikings, and native tribes fighting for control of the river's supernatural power. Hundreds died. The water literally ran with blood. Pause. In the final entry, dated 1795, Duncan MacLeod wrote, "We have won, but at terrible cost. The stones, 6 of them, carved by the natives and claimed by the Northmen, are scattered. We buried them along the river to seal away the power, to prevent anyone from using it again. We rename this cursed place Bluid River, Blood River, so we never forget the price of our greed." But someone had wanted to forget, wanted it desperately enough to change the name, bury the records, and erase every trace of the massacre. Elias looked up at Mrs. Carmichael, his voice barely a whisper. "I found one of the stones." The librarian's face went pale. "Then God help us all," she said, "because that means the seal is breaking." Blood River. Chapter 4. The Watchers. Elias tried to act normal. He went to class. He ate lunch. He laughed at his friends' jokes. But inside, his mind was racing with everything he'd learned. The massacre, the stones, the buried power, and his grandmother, who had apparently investigated the same mystery and vanished. He needed to be more careful, more discreet. But he'd already made a mistake. Someone was watching him. It started with small things. A feeling of eyes on his back in the hallway. His locker being opened. His notebooks rifled through, but nothing taken. Then larger things. On Wednesday, he found a note slipped into his backpack. "Stop looking." On Thursday, someone followed him home from the library, staying just far enough back to remain hidden. On Friday, his research notebook disappeared from his bedroom while he was at school. Someone knew what he was doing, and they wanted him to stop. But Elias Stewart had never been good at stopping once he'd started something. It was Maya Rodriguez who finally confronted him. She cornered him after last period, her dark eyes flashing with a mixture of concern and anger. Maya had been his friend since 3rd grade, sharp-tongued, fiercely loyal, and too observant for her own good. "Okay, spill," she demanded. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," Elias lied. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar. You've been acting weird for weeks, disappearing to the library every day, falling asleep in English class. And yesterday I saw Mr. Hendricks, you know, the assistant principal who's never worked a day in his life, literally following you through the hallways. Whatever you're into, Elias, it's not safe, and you're going to need help." Elias wanted to brush her off, to protect her from whatever danger he'd stumbled into, but Maya was right. He was in over his head, and he couldn't do this alone, so he told her everything. The stone, the shadow creature, the library archives, the massacre at Blood River, his missing grandmother. Maya listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "We need to tell Jessie." Jessie Whitehawk. Jessie Whitehawk was the 3rd point in their friendship triangle. Quiet where Maya was loud, thoughtful where Elias was impulsive. His family had lived in the Millbrook area for generations, longer than the town itself had existed. They found him in the school library, studying for a history test. When Elias showed him a sketch of the stone's symbols, Jessie's face went very still. "Where did you see this?" he asked quietly. "In the river? Why? Do you recognize it?" Jessie looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in close. "My great-grandfather told stories about stones like this. He said our people carved them with the Northmen 400 years ago to contain a power that was destroying everything it touched. They were supposed to stay buried. If you found one, that means someone's bringing them up. Someone's trying to break the seal. Elias, you must have shown up at just the right time, just when they had completed their ceremony and found the stone they were looking for. But how are they finding these small stones from so long ago, and what do you mean by bringing them up? Elias asked. Jesse said, according to my great-grandfather, there's only one way to find these stones, and that's through ritual ceremonies. But he said these stones should never be brought back up. He said that some things are buried for a reason, and some things should stay buried. He also said that if someone was to do the ceremony, it has to be done correctly. Maya asked, and if it's not done correctly? Jesse responded with one word, chaos. The three looked at each other from across the library table with the same sense of concern. The three friends sat in silence, the weight of the mystery pressing down on them. Finally, Maya spoke. So what do we do? Elias pulled the carved stone from his backpack. It pulsed with faint blue light in the dim library. We figure out who's breaking the seal and why. We find out what happened to my grandmother, and we stop whatever's coming before it's too late. Jesse nodded slowly. My great-grandfather kept journals, too. In our language, if there are answers, they might be there.